so I will get going. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. My name is Jeremy Jaley. I'm Business Development Lead here at Smart Impact, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you this morning to this webinar. The topic this morning is understanding modern digital membership and how to get there. And I think this is going to be a very practical session, talking about some of the key concepts that you need to have in place to support an engaging modern digital membership strategy and plan, and some of the tools and thought processes that you need to install to support that. We have two presenters this morning, myself and Alan Reid. I'll let Alan introduce himself in a second, but he is a very experienced not-for-profit consultant who's worked with membership organisations for several years. I won't go further than that, Alan, but several years. And a few quick words on etiquette. So we are recording the session and we will be distributing the video and the recording at the end. In terms of questions, we absolutely welcome these, and we're going to make sure that there is a bit of time at the end of the webinar for you to be able to ask any questions that you want to. But we've got a chat facility throughout the session, so if something occurs to you that you want us to cover during the Q&A, please just put that into the chat and we will get to that when we can. And as I said, we're going to try and address as many of the Q&A sessions as possible at the end. So in terms of the agenda, we're going to talk about what members really value about membership and why that's absolutely at the cornerstone of what membership organisations should be thinking about. We want to talk about modern digital engagement, what that looks like and what tools you need to support it, how to develop your own member development strategy. And then we're going to end up with some very, very practical advice, almost troubleshooting advice, built on our experience working with organisations in this domain to help you get started as effectively as possible. And then, as I said, of course, we're going to have an opportunity for questions. So, Alan, may I hand over to you?
Great. Thanks so much, Jeremy. Good morning, everybody. My name's Alan Reid, and I've been working with membership organisations since way back in the day. Where essentially it was enough just to provide an annual membership card, some people might remember those, and allow people to come to the annual conference. That was essentially what people got out of their membership. Obviously, we're all modern digital consumers now, and people expect a whole lot more, and it's actually become very competitive. We find over and over, if you're not satisfying members with ease of access, channels, interesting content and benefits to their career, then there are lots of other people who will. So the choice is greater, so the demand on membership organizations is greater than ever. So let's get into that. Let's start off with, what do we mean by modern engagement? I'll just rattle through this quickly, so I suspect most of us should know. Essentially, what we are describing here is a sophisticated measurement of your members' participation levels in what you offer to them. So engagement is any way of them dealing with what you send them or engaging with your content in any way. And of course, the measurement of it should be across your membership as a whole, but also very, very individualistically with individual organizations and individual people as well. The big deal, as I think we all know, you wouldn't be on the webinar if not, is that when members engage, they're more likely to carry on spending money with you. They're more likely to talk about you to other people in their profession, and they're less likely to just simply go and stop renewing. That's where the measurement and the tracking of engagement becomes just a vital thing to do. If you're not measuring where people are engaging, you've got no idea what's working, you've got no idea where you're wasting your time, and you've got no opportunity then to resolve problems that you have, or you're essentially choosing to manage decline. So you can choose to manage your membership engagement, monitor it and improve it, or you're on the slippery slope. So something that not everyone is aware of all of the time but it's an important principle of membership engagement, is that membership engagement is something that you need to develop a strategy for every process of the member's lifetime journey. So where a lot of people fall down, unfortunately, is that they don't start before the member is a member. They don't start before they start, if you like. So there isn't a strategy. There are some campaigns, there are some goals, some aspirations, but there isn't a strategy around awareness and recruitment of members. There isn't a strategy around the onboarding process to get people into the best possible mindset to carrying on with you. And then, of course, after that, yes, it's more common to have a strategy once they are members, and particularly around the renewal time. But actually, at those early stages, it's very often left alone. So what we find is that the member engagement element is equally important at every stage. And our research shows, there's a simple practical point, by the way, that our research shows that the most important stage of your relationship with your member is actually the onboarding process. That first month when you when you're bringing them into membership and you're showing them the value of membership, because members are so busy and they ignore 90% of what's sent to them. That first impression, if it's done really well, can persist in their minds for years. If you show a really good side of yourself during the onboarding process, the recruitment process, and at that first month of membership, they will simply renew for the next 3 years on the memory of that really successful onboarding process. So that's an area that's often understated on the different stages of membership and engagement. So what we find, we recognize that it's a huge amount of extremely hard work to do member engagement and scoring and measuring and reporting and responding to it. But the reality is, if you're not going to do it, then the costs and the implications are pretty dire. So the first element in kind of breaking this huge task down into manageable chunks is always to understand what your members and your potential members what they really value and what they don't. So and we recognize as well that in a multi-channel world where people can engage on your social media, they can repost your LinkedIn or not, they can consume your e-shots or not, they can run around on your website. Recognizing where people are engaging and measuring it through all of those different channels and others is takes some doing. But of course, the rewards are significant as well. So what we find to be some really important practical points are, first of all, recognize that it varies a lot. As I said earlier, the days where you can simply send everyone a membership card and treat everyone the same are gone. So recognizing that new members are different, that whole point about the onboarding process and proving your value, making that first impression can't be overstated. Students are very different. They're as cheap as hell. They will actually consume more of your content than others. Of course, they're not paying much for it, but they have different needs and they need to be persuaded of the value to their career to a much higher degree than others. Mid-career people are different. Again, they tend to be all about demonstrating that they're valuable in their role and they're keeping up with their profession, and that CPD and other forms of continuing professional development are vital to them. And of course, corporate members are different from everyone yet again. Corporate members in some ways are the hardest to prove your value to, and there are specific techniques and models for doing that. So recognize not everyone is the same, to state the obvious again. So the first element then becomes understanding what your members value, what they're willing to pay for, and what they'll continue paying for the years. Don't fall into the trap of treating them all as a monolithic group, even within new members, even within corporate members. We see over and over again this term "pray and pray" that salespeople use in their presentations and so on. It's so well known for a reason. It's still very much the norm. The majority of membership organizations that I work with, their starting position is essentially one e-shot to all members, one landing page that's absolutely identical to all members, and it's very hard for any member to feel understood or valued in that scenario. So essentially, it's a matter of understanding what your members need by their type of membership, where they are, but also in their different phases. So people go through the different phases of their relationship with you. And if you're not keeping up to date with that phase and anticipating the next phase, then they're going to feel undervalued. They're going to start voting with their feet. So essentially, the key to increasing member engagement, as well as having a strategy for every phase of the relationship with them, is really, really very simple. It's very easy to say, very easy to understand, really hard to do. So the principles of it are research it, understand what your different segments are interested in, then and make sure that's by phase as well as membership type and other attributes. Do it, which is have a plan for giving people what they're interested in, what they need, what they really value. And then, of course, you have to measure, which is more research. So you're measuring the take-up, measuring where people are ignoring content or buying into content. And then, of course, as well, you're refining from there. So you're measure, refine as part of you providing your content, providing your services, engaging with your members. So checking your understanding and what people are really willing to pay for. We did a survey, and I want to make a point about this survey. I talked about this survey on 2 previous webinars. And I'm not saying that because we're cheap and we're trying to recycle things. Actually, I want to make the point that from one survey where we talked to 152 associations, we asked them 20 questions, and out of that survey, with those 20 questions, we got enough content and enough insight and enough understanding and material to then do, e-shots, to then do thought leadership pieces, research analysis pieces, and webinars. So we love a survey, and it's one of the main tools that membership organizations have, and you get so much value and content out of it. It is genuinely worth spending days and days and days to survey your membership, in addition to the fact that members love being surveyed. Or at least a proportion of them do. So we asked them, amongst the 20 questions and relevant for today, are you meeting your members' expectations? Do you have a formal engagement strategy? What are the challenges you find in delivering on your engagement strategy to your members? And then do you do holistic engagement scoring? Are you looking all of the time at what people are responding to? And I don't just mean looking at the e-shot results. Are you looking at your other forms of content and your other deliverables to your members and seeing what the response rates on them are? So the results are interesting, actually reasonably disappointing as well. Not as many are doing what they should be doing as you would expect. And the reality is most people are aware of it as well. So we asked this question: do you have this formal engagement strategy? So essentially a plan for all of your segments, or a plan for the different stages of membership. And the results are no. The great majority of organizations said we do some of it. We have aspirations, but we don't actually have a formal engagement strategy. We then asked, do you do membership engagement scoring? So that is when you're looking at it. We'll talk about scoring in a minute, but essentially you're looking at a person or an organization, and you're measuring what their take-up of you is and your content and how happy they are. Again, unfortunately, the great majority of associations don't seem to have time, don't seem to have the resources to do proper engagement scoring. And virtually all of them, so at least 73%, the only real monitoring of take-up is through e-shots, is through click-throughs on emails. They're not able to monitor pretty much anything else that they're sending out to their members. So they just hope for the best when they send it, and they have no idea of what's happening with it after they've sent it. So we found an interesting correlation, which is that, all right, only 32% had a formal engagement plan, but within that 32%, that roughly a third of organizations actually having an engagement plan, nearly 2/3 saw an increase in retention simply for having a plan and then executing that plan. Over half saw an increase in people attending their events, whether physical or remote. And over 2/3 saw an increase in website traffic. because they were targeting people saying, you might be interested in this. Here's a link to jump through to the website. And those who might be interested in this were personalized, relevant, targeted, so people will respond better. Okay, so when it comes to creating a member engagement strategy, we say it's all about the really very simple principles. It's not a complicated thing to understand, but it's a hard thing to deliver. We recognize that. So what we find is one of your most important tools on this is we're going to start talking about grouping members together, segmenting them into as small as reasonable granular blocks. So you can't understand them all personally, but you can understand them in related groups. So when segmenting, we find it terribly helpful to come up with the idea of personas that you're going to attach to each segment. It makes it much easier for you to then think about content that might be relevant to them, engagement channels that might work for them, methods of trying to reach out and talk to them that might work if you put a face and a name to it through personas. So this persona here, for instance, is a fairly typical one. As a membership association, it's helpful to be really humble with the degree of investment most of your members have when it comes to your content, obviously with the goal to improve it. And the reality is the great majority of what you produce gets ignored. That's a really bitter reality if you're a content creator, as most of us are. But most of it goes into the well of they're really, really busy and they're just not going to absorb it. But from my own experience of being a member of many membership organizations, actually the fact that I'm seeing stuff go past, I'm seeing stuff being sent to me, even if I'm not actually engaging with it, I still value it. I know it's there. I'm still going to renew if I can see personalized, relevant, targeted content, at least on the subject line of emails, at least when I get to the landing page of the website. I know it's there, and when I get time, I'll get to it. Whether I ever get time is a secondary issue. You've done your job and they'll renew. Okay, so personas we find to be vital. So then when it comes to the simple principles, what we go through as part of when we're advising people on an engagement strategy is, yes, start with segmenting, segment. So not just by type, as I say, by phases in their life cycle with you. Then from there, it's of course agreeing what each segment needs. That's where you create your persona. Stick them on the wall like a police bulletin board, and then start working through what you can do to add value to that membership relationship for that persona and through the different stages of their membership life with you. And then creating a plan to give them the benefits that they want and that they're going to value and that they're going to continue to pay for. Often that's a mixture of reminding them that the benefits they have with you, as well as, of course, creating content that they're going to engage with, they're going to value, they're going to feel like you're adding value to their working relationship, their working lives. And then finally, measure and refine continuously. So this is essentially a loop of essentially working out what people want, giving it to them, seeing if you got it right. Did they really value this? Are people reading this research study? Do people engage with this survey? Are people reading about the results of the survey? If not, then refine it further and do something slightly different next time. So then it's worth talking about scoring on that and engagement journeys. So first of all, it's worth recognizing, I think, that not all of your members are good members. So one of the things that some people are a little surprised at is actually there are some members that when you do engagement scoring and you work out what people are consuming from you, there are some on the far right here that actually it would make more sense to drop them. If people are eating you alive on your support service or your HR service that you provide as part of membership, or other forms of consuming human time, then actually if you monitor that and compare it to what they're paying you, you might not want to focus all of your time on keeping those members. Then you on the leftmost columns, you've got your most valuable members who are like gym members who never go to the gym. They just pay up, they engage minimally, but they, they're not consuming any of your time. Then you've got the ones that are actually potentially at risk, or not engaging enough, and you're worried that they're going to go. But simply categorizing we find to be extremely helpful. But we find that it's not as simple as people would imagine, because the reality is there are certain hurdles to member engagement scoring as well. So first of all, here's the reality for most associations today. Good engagement is based on good data. If you don't have good data, it is incredibly hard for you to be able to be personalized, relevant, and targeted to somebody that you don't know, that you have no insight into, because you don't have their data. You don't know what they're consuming. You don't know what they value. You barely know how they profiled themselves when they joined. So if you don't have that kind of insight, it's incredibly hard to be relevant and personal, and added value to them. So the reality for most membership organizations, unfortunately, is the position on the right, where you don't have survey insight. You don't have insight into what website activity, what are they reading on your website, what are they not reading. When you're looking at a member's record, you have no idea of what social media posts that they liked or forwarded or retweeted or whatever it is. It's just a black hole for you, and you have very little insight into their comms. So what you're left with, if you're lucky, is some educational transactions and information, their basic membership activities, their payment information, and their profile of what they said they were interested in when they first joined. And we do accept fully that it's incredibly hard to be personalized based on so little information. You've more or less just got a silhouette of the person at that point. So that needs to be recognized and acted upon. So very often for most associations, and it's getting better. It's getting better all the time with the rise of things like Dynamics and platform solutions where everything is done in one place. So very often these different bits of data are spread across different systems all over the place. And of course, staff members can't get hold of it without going to their internal IT person and saying, oh, can you give me a list of those? Can you give me a list of those? And before you know it, the data's out of date. It's not what you want, and people can't be bothered. So these days, the most association projects are aiming to achieve this, which is, of course, having everything managed with one system. Your website around the outside is integrated into everything, including CPD, events, exams, every kind of engagement that you have with people. And then all of that information is available to you to then be the starting point for your engagement scoring and your engagement improvement. So essentially recognizing there are multiple complex interactions these days, but you need to be in a position where you can analyze everything in one place and then have it in a way that you can act on it. And then that gives you your platform of information that you need to then do meaningful engagement scoring. So Jeremy's going to talk to us a little bit more about the how-to, and including where you don't have great data. A lot of these challenges are cultural, so that you can start to make improvements even if your systems are letting you down at the moment. So Jeremy, if I hand over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Alan. I'm just going to share my screen. As always, I need to jump to the right slide. I think it always goes to the beginning. Yeah, bear with me 1 second. Okay. Perfect. Is that coming through okay, Alan?
Yeah, great. Oh,
brilliant. Okay. So I plan to do 2 things. I want to build on Alan's description of what modern membership engagement looks like and how to put in place an engagement plan or engagement strategy to support that. And one of the key tools that we recommend at Smart Impact is engagement scoring. So I'm going to focus a lot on engagement scoring and how that can help. But I want to finish off perhaps with some more practical advice and guidance around how to improve engagement in your kind of as-is scenario as well. So some very practical tips around things that you can do to improve what engagement looks like in your organization today. So Alan's already talked about personas and segmentation, and we believe that personas are an excellent way to conceptualize the types of member that you're servicing and what might be of use and of interest to them in terms of how they consume your membership offering. I remember a long time ago now, but when I was a younger man, going into the boardroom of a major pharmaceutical retailer. There's not that many of them, so you can probably guess who it was. And in their boardroom, they had pictures on the wall of 6 different key stakeholders that were the key personas that the organization was trying to reach, with a description of who those people are, what was important to them, and what this business was going to do to improve their lives and well-being. And it really is a very, very helpful way to conceptualize who members are, think about the what you're offering to them, the why you're offering it, and how you're going to communicate that with them so that your products resonate, and then of course how to actually deliver the services and benefits that they want, which is quite often by letting people know that those services exist, marketing and communicating with them, so that they take those on. So once you've created your personas, you need to create a plan to keep each of those personas or those segments access to the relevant benefits. And typically you will then be measuring touch points that you have with those members as key interactions or KPIs in your system, so that you can see when those services are being taken up, why they were taken up, and what the outcome of those interactions were. So this tends to happen through stages. Membership organizations tend to have a sort of life cycle with their members that starts over at growing awareness about the organization and what you do, activating members into membership, and then helping them to adopt your services, to retain them by making sure that they're useful and beneficial to them, and then ultimately getting them to become advocates and evangelists for your organizations and referring new people to join you as members. And it's likely that each organization will have their own set of KPIs for measuring this, but generally when we first interacting with organizations, the way they are measuring this information and how they're capturing it is being done in multiple different systems, and it's very, very difficult to get an overall vision or overall picture of how an individual member is interacting with you overall, because data exists in different spreadsheets, or sometimes even in more traditional techniques like sign-in sheets for events that haven't actually been put into any system of record. But if you really want to get value from this information and use it to shape what you're doing as an organization, then you want to be capturing these touch points in your major system of record, which is probably your membership CRM, and then to be categorizing each of those KPIs against the various segments and personas that you have and the various phases, so where different people are up to in their relationship with you, so that you can get a holistic view of how people are progressing through an overall membership journey. And obviously it's only by having an effective journey that people want to go through and that works will you ever really deliver effective engagement. And of course, this is absolutely critical, because as you're doing this, not only do you want to measure what people are actually doing, you want to be thinking continually about how you refine that activity, or perhaps even refine how you are marketing or promoting that activity so that more people take it up and interact with you. So as I said, at Smart Impact, we find that engagement scoring is a really, really helpful tool to support this. And we have a module within our suite of Dynamics 365 tools that pulls this all together, and it's called Smart Engagement. And what Smart Engagement does is it takes all of the tangible metrics that you might hold about a member in your CRM system, and using some calculated fields and an algorithm, it creates a single engagement score that indicates how engaged a member is with you at a given point in time, and how engaged they are versus all of your other members. And some of our clients put those into personas. Some of our clients look at all of the members in one go to support that. So it's taking information from website visits, information from your email marketing campaigns like open rates, click-through rates, etc., whether people have downloaded and used your mobile app, whether people are undertaking training and education with your organization, whether people are engaging with your content on your website, and many other characteristic data elements that you have, like how long people have been members, how much they spend with you on an annual basis, sometimes other more sentimental based indicators, and put those together into a single score. That makes it a lot easier for you to get a visual representation of where members are up to in their relationship with you. So firstly, we put the overall engagement score front and center so that people can see when they look at a member's record how engaged the member is. We then use KPIs to support analysis and evaluation of the relationship. They're designed to be flexible, so you're able to put the different KPIs that are relevant to your organisation front and centre, but quite often they are tracking what your expected level of interaction is versus your actual level of interaction. So in this particular example, it's a predicted spend in a year against an actual spend in a year. Obviously, if members are overspending, that indicates good engagement. If they're not, then there's probably work to be done. And then we also use the data that Smart Engagement provides to provide breakdowns by category of the things like their spend or their number of interactions with you. So again, you can get a nice visual insight into the way that members are engaging with your organization. So in terms of using Smart Engagement, but actually not just Smart Engagement, using any tool that's designed to measure and improve how you interact with contacts, there are certain steps that you need to put in place. So as we've covered fairly extensively in this webinar, we believe that getting your data house in order is really, really important. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean putting all your data in one system, although if there is a wherewithal to do that, it would certainly create efficiencies in terms of how you access and query information. But it certainly means putting your data into an ecosystem where all the important information about engagement activity are accessible and available to support your processes. So in modern data systems, that might mean storing all of your data in a single cloud provider like Microsoft Azure, and then using tools like data warehouses or Microsoft Fabric or customer data platform to pull data together into one place so that you can analyze it all together. You then need to use this data to classify your members into categories and audiences. So obviously that should really be driven by your personas so that you have an idea of the who. But when you're doing this, you need to make sure that firstly, you're not continually changing the segments that you put people into. One of the key ways I find this is falling down is that people create personas and they create segments, but they quite often recut that information over and over again and actually switch and change which members sit in which categories, meaning that the very targeted messages that you're sending out to one set of personas gets a little bit jarred. So I think if you are using the persona as a key marketing principle, then sticking to it and making sure that it can flow through your entire marketing activity is really, really important. And you also need to think not just about the who and why, but also the what and how, what channels your different members and personas will most likely interact with, and therefore how your marketing activity should be directed towards those particular channels. Finally, you need to surface that engagement information so that it's helpful and useful, particularly to your membership and marketing teams, who are likely the two teams that are going to be using it most of all. There's no point putting all of this sort of wonderful data measuring in place and not using that information to actually improve what you're doing. And then finally, you want to use that information to drive relevant member or marketing journeys, i.e. guiding members to the right activities that are relevant and designed for them. Now, there are several marketing automation platforms out there that can support this, but our preferred one is Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, which is the out-of-the-box marketing module within Dynamics 365. And D365 is a real-time marketing automation platform, and it enables you to use the data that you hold against records in your system, so your smart engagement score or information about the persona that you have categorized members into, or information about their membership, the events they're attending, etc., to drive how you interact and market to those organizations. And you can use very visual and very easy to create sort of journey maps to put in place these various interactions. And of course, the advantage of using a powerful platform like Dynamics 365 is that this can support a variety of different touch points. So it's not just email, but it can also support personalization on your website. It can drive messaging through channels like SMS and social media, and it can also direct staff to making phone calls and actually engaging, one-to-one with members when it's appropriate to do that. So for instance, if you have a journey that identifies members who are at risk of lapsing because they have a low engagement score, they haven't done a huge amount with the organization in the last 6 to 9 months, then you can actually sort of surface other actions in your system to support that. So how our clients use this is that they set up different member journeys for the different personas and start thinking about how they move members from being in a persona to being someone who actually utilizes a benefit or service. We use various different channels to support that and try to think carefully with clients about what the best channels for communicating with individual members are. And then, of course, we use the information in Smart Impact to trigger those journeys in the first place. So perhaps, when people are at risk, putting them into at-risk journeys, or indeed transferring members from one journey to another when it's relevant to do that. And there's a lot of power in being able to, for instance, react to the fact that someone has come to an event by putting them into a journey to attend another event or to do something else by way of follow-up, which is relevant to that interaction. So typically how that might work might be by providing the right message at the right time through the right channel to a member, promoting an activity, putting that in front of them, making it easy for them to register and undertake a call to action to be engaged. On the portal, it's about personalization and tailoring the journey that members experience when they visit your site so that it's relevant to where they are. So we quite often use these call to action boxes at the top of interfaces that effectively guide member to take the most important next step that the membership organization wants them to undertake. And as you can see, these might change depending on the particular member and their particular priorities. So if CPD is of importance is particularly relevant or important, make sure that that top panel is about CPD. If what you want them to do at the moment is to renew their membership, make sure that renewal and an easy to contact us button is available when they visit that page. And then, as I said, of course, as well, never let the sort of technology get in the way of the valuable one-to-one relationship that you should have with members. I mean, one of the great advantages that membership organizations have over commercial competitors is they often know a lot about members and can engender quite high quality personal relationships with them. But remind staff, when it's time to make an at-risk phone call or when it's time to engage directly with a member, and build those into those journeys as well. So ultimately, once you have an engagement plan in place and you have the metrics and tools that you need to analyze and measure how it's performing, then journeys really turn into the critical tool that you use to turn theory into action by guiding members towards the benefits and services that are most relevant to them. Right, so I suppose thus far we've talked a lot about the theory, but I wanted to just finish off by providing you with some takeaways that are potentially things that you could go and do today or later this week or in the immediate term to actually improve the levels of engagement that you have with members. And the way I'm going to do that is by identifying some of the most common challenges that organizations encounter when they're actually delivering digital engagement activity, and then to provide some practical guidance on how to navigate or avoid these. And then I will wrap up. So the first one of these is emails getting a low click rate. Now, I thought I'd start with a bit of data analysis by Constant Contact, who is a major marketing player, email marketing player from January this year, actually, indicates that for not-for-profit membership organisations, the average open rate for email is 42.16%. The average click-through rate on email marketing messages is 2.75%, and the average bounce rate on an email campaign is 12.11. So I think firstly, benchmark your activity against this information and make sure that you are monitoring these key statistics. These are, I think, the sort of holy trinity of statistics for email marketing activity, with a view to improving them, because they're likely to be the key performance indicators that you need to ensure your email marketing campaigns are successful. And if you find that any of your campaigns aren't living up to this to these numbers, then that probably indicates that you've got some work to do to improve the quality of your email activity. So how can you do this? Well, there are a few different ways. Firstly, you could try mixing up your content. And I'm just going to be very clear here. I'm talking about ways to improve click rate. There are various ways that you can try and improve open rates by working on making subject lines more appealing, by thinking about the time that you send emails to people so that they are, receiving them at a time when they're not absolutely snowed under by other emails, or when they're in automatic archive mode, two very sort of common sort of mindsets when it comes to email. So around click-through rate, mix up your content. Perhaps rather than sending an email or a sort of long thing for people to read, send something like a video. It might be a click on the video in the email to go to YouTube or Vimeo or some other marketing platform where you can host the video. But it's a very, very popular medium, and quite often people are much more interested in hearing directly from their organisation through a video, rather than wading through a large amount of written text. You've also got to make the actual message compelling. I mean, I see so many emails that are just, a dizzying mess of loads and loads of different bits of information and content. Think about how you can make the information in the email relevant, use different formats, use infographics, and perhaps make it teaser information that members have to click to access full information, because that will certainly, if it's relevant and interest to them, inspire them to click through to wherever you're hosting the information. And of course, don't forget about segmentation. Have the right personas, highlight content in your messages that will be particularly relevant to the segments that you're targeting. Think about using tools such as dynamic content blocks in message, so that different segments can receive a communication but with different tailored and relevant information. Perhaps use some A/B testing to see how different segments and personas react to different messages that you send out. So a second common challenge is low event take-up, and quite frankly, there is nothing worse than agreeing to undertake an event and then having a low turnout, because they normally require a lot of work and buy-in, particularly from the people that you arrange to speak, who will have to bring energy and commitment, but also to the organisation in organising the event. So make sure you're choosing relevant and interesting topics, and as Alan has suggested, one of the best ways that you can do some exploratory work on this is actually by surveying members and asking them what will be of interest to them, because by actually sort of responding to people's needs, you'll be able to make your content much more relevant. Focus on solving problems and practical advice. what might be obvious to you as a membership organisation, because you hear of the problem several times a week from all of your members, might not necessarily be immediately obvious to individuals working within the individuals that your members, the individuals that you're actually marketing to. So make sure that you are focused on problem solving and making sessions practical and useful. And finally, think about inviting guest speakers, because that gives you the opportunity to expand your reach by engaging with their networks and their friends and colleagues, etc. A quick word of warning about that is to make sure that you're sticking to the rule of having a clear audience in mind. What you don't want to do is invite a guest speaker and get him to invite loads and loads of people along to the event for whom it's not relevant. So make sure you're sticking to that golden rule of having clear personas and clear segments in mind. Another common problem is having too few visitors to your website. So again, I think quite often the root causes of this are that the content on your site are not as relevant and interesting to members as they should be. So survey members for feedback. Perhaps undertake a simple member workshop, something you can probably do annually to get feedback and brainstorm ideas around what content will be particularly useful and relevant to members, and when disseminating that content out will be particularly useful. Certainly look at competitors. There's lots of different places that you can look for inspiration around what type of content is useful. It might be other associations working in the same sector or domain. It might be other associations that are outside that domain, but that have particularly proactive and engaged members. It might be other sources of information, so your corporate competitors and information sites. But make sure that you are focusing your efforts on personalizing website content, be that signposting information that's relevant, making sure that you have regular fresh content, and that the next time a member comes to your website, they're not seeing the same old content just recycled. And don't underestimate the power of search. 87% of all online journeys start with search, so people are very used to the concept of searching, but I very often see the search feature on membership organizations' websites really hidden away, and certainly not doing as intuitive a job as it can do. If you have a lack of new joiners, think about encouraging your existing members to promote your content. I think it's very likely that your members have a really sort of applicable networks to you, and probably are interacting through their social media and other channels with other prospective members. Definitely invest properly in social media and don't treat it just as a soapbox. Certainly create relevant content that you can distribute via social media, but when you do that, encourage members and other stakeholders like your senior staff to repost that content and to comment on it, and be social. When people comment on your posts, make sure you comment back or thank people for how they're supporting it, and by doing that you'll create a much more sort of fruitful, organic social media experience for people. And then, of course, as Alan explained, you need to think about your value proposition and show how the benefits of your organisation help to solve career and business problems for your members, and make sure that you're using case studies and member stories to support that, because ultimately the more you can make your offering feel relevant and timely to members, the more likely they are to take action. And what if you have a leaky bucket? What if you've got high churn rate? Lots of members are not renewing their membership with you. Well, first and foremost, as we've talked about today, make sure that you're putting real work into developing member personas and having an effective engagement strategy. Communicate more and often. If you have ways of identifying when members are at risk of leaving, think about picking up the phone, think about re-engagement campaigns, think about what you could do to really make it as easy as possible for those members to want to renew and retain their membership with you. But if people do leave, perhaps again pick up the phone and organise an exit interview. Ask them what it was about the membership that was preventing them from getting as much value as they hoped they had. We find quite often that actually leads people to reconsidering and rejoining, but also it gives you very, very valuable sentiment data that you can use to improve your offering. And of course, don't forget that it often takes, it often costs 5 times as much to recruit a new member than to retain an existing member. So there is quite a lot of sort of practical economic benefit in prioritising that. And be responsive. I mean, I think this goes for all organisations, but make sure that if people give you good ideas, good suggestions and things that you can change, then make sure you tell people about those changes and credit the individuals who helped to inspire those changes, because again, people like to see that their ideas and suggestions are being turned into practical action. So just to summarise, I think that was a whistle-stop tour of some of the common challenges that membership organisations face when adopting digital engagement tools, and some practical advice about how to overcome many of these. I just want to wrap up by highlighting the 4 major conclusions that we hope folks will take away from today. So firstly, recognise that with any new engagement plan or strategy, there is certainly a tech element in 2024, but there's also an important cultural element to the change that you're undertaking. Tech can be an incredible enabler, but if the underlying purpose that the tech is serving is not relevant, then don't be surprised if people aren't interested in that technology on its own. Secondly, consult and segment, and then, as Alan said, do it again and again and again. Membership organisations exist to serve their members, and only by listening to what they want and delivering on that will you be able to move the needle in terms of engagement. Equally, exploit your members, but in a good way to support this. So in the vast majority of cases, members are members because they want the benefits that you deliver, be that your specific services or product offerings, or because they need that membership to fulfill other career goals and objectives. So in particular, make sure you live up to your role as an association by making it easy for members to meet and interact with you, and to meet and interact with other members, because it really is something that they are very interested in. And finally, make it easy. And I think, you know, throughout this presentation, all the advice and guidance we're giving is to help you enable your engagement strategy to be as easy as it can be. People's time is precious, and the reality of today is that there are countless competing demands for people's attention. Engagement with a membership organisation should be easy, rewarding and intuitive, particularly with digital services that they interact with. But ultimately, if members find it difficult to engage with you, then it's highly likely that they will find a way to stop. And there's no better way of making that engagement difficult by not having an effective plan in the first place to deliver it. And if you would like a little bit more advice and guidance on our website, sorry, it's a long URL. We'll make sure that we send this out with a link, certainly, at the end of the presentation as well. But we've actually got a guide to member engagement on our website that you can download and read. Right, so I think, Alan, that's probably an opportunity to answer some questions. You're on mute, Alan. That's probably not a good way to engage or answer some questions.
Sure. We've had some really good questions come through on the chat, some of them pre-event. So one of them came through was, what's the role of social media when it comes to modern member engagement? We just use the tools themselves, you know, LinkedIn or Twitter, X, but we can't monitor reactions. So just to add to something Jeremy was saying earlier in response to this question, where I think social media really adds a huge amount of value, it's not all about the monitoring. I know we've been talking about member engagement scoring and the monitoring, but it's not all about if a tree falls over in the forest and no one hears it kind of thing. Even if you're not monitoring, the great value with social media posting is showing that you're relevant, personalized, and targeted to different segments. And the best thing you can hope from it is that your members are reposting, that they're liking, that they're retweeting, and sharing it within their own social groups, so that you're making your members work for you in a way that they like doing, as Jeremy has already mentioned. Even where you are using the direct Facebook tool or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever it is, there are huge technical challenges to monitoring directly into the CRM, and we don't suggest spending all of your time doing that. But what you should absolutely be doing, we suggest, is keeping a log of the content and what happened to it afterwards, even if it's just in a spreadsheet, because otherwise you're operating in the dark. You're not able to see how this event promotion got responses versus that event promotion for the annual conference or whatever it is. And you can see that differences in language can or subject lines or difference in social media content really do make a difference. And only when you start to see them together, even if it's only in a spreadsheet, do you get to refine and tune. Jeremy, a question for you, please. There's we had a pre-event question of our systems don't really talk to each other. So that's a really common challenge. Do we typically need to replace the website and CRM to improve membership scoring and engagement? Could I get your thoughts on that one, please?
Okay, so look, I don't think you definitely need to replace CRM and website to do that, but quite often the reality for membership organizations is that they're using two different tools in their CRM and website that don't talk together, and the task of actually technically integrating those two different systems together is extremely complex. So there are a few different options you could consider. One is that if you're working with a CRM provider that builds portals and websites, maybe talk to them about building you a new portal that is much more closely coupled to the CRM technology that they are providing for you, or potentially think about replacing both. I mean, I don't think it's understating it to say that in 2024, having an integrated members portal and CRM at the very least, ideally you would have an integrated website and CRM so that you could do much more powerful personalization and tailoring beyond just portal pages. But an absolute sort of minimum is to have an integrated CRM and portal. And so if you don't have that, then yes, you probably are in a position where replacing is the easiest and lowest effort, lowest cost overall option.
And as we've talked about, the foundation of good engagement and scoring is essentially data. So you need the people side and you need the data. And if you're not able to do it through your single integrated system, etc., then that's where people break out and they buy analytics tools, tracking tools, data warehouse tools. It can be done that way. But it tends to be a painful overhead. One more question, which is how much is member engagement improvement a question of technology, and how much of it is a question of culture? Can I just put that one to you, Jeremy, please? More of a philosophical question.
Yeah. I mean, look, first and foremost, if you're interested in engaging with your members, however you engage, it's going to be a cultural thing, right? There's going to be cultural aspects to understanding what you do as an organization, understanding what members want from you as an organization, understanding the best ways to interact with them. But the reality of the world in 2024 is that members will expect one of the primary ways for you to deliver services and benefits and for them to get value out of their membership is by using digital tools and services. So it's not exclusively a tech question, certainly, and really you can't have the cultural end of the question without tech in 2024. So it genuinely is both. It is a bit of a philosophical question, though, Alan, I think.
Absolutely. Great. I think we can wrap it up there. So Jeremy, would you mind just wrapping up briefly, because we're coming up to time?
By all means, look, it's been fantastic to have so many people on this webinar this morning. We have had great attendance. I suspect you can't see that, or if you can, great, but it's obviously a relevant and interesting topic. We do these webinars regularly, so there's another one in April. If you go to smartimpact.co.uk events, you'll be able to see that. Sometimes they've got a real focus on sort of strategy and value as per today. Sometimes they're really focused on the tech, but overall they provide, you know, some useful pointers, guidance, and insight. We will distribute the slides, as I said at the beginning, and if you would like a further conversation about anything that we have talked about today, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Our email is there, and you can also find both Alan and I on LinkedIn and all the normal channels. So thank you very, very much.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much.